Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Resilience Movement podcast. And I have an awesome guest today, Reece Anderson from We Overcome Anything, which you can see behind him. Hi, Reece. How are you?
Hello, how you going? Thanks for
I'm
having
great.
me. Thanks for having me.
Happy New Year 2021.
As we were just saying before we came online, it's kind of like, I don't know, what are we, 3 days in and it feels like it's been about 3 months and I don't know.
And it's like for me, it's already an awesome year. Like it's already fantastic. And, and I know everyone doesn't feel the same way, and that's okay. But I'm certainly not going to reduce my excitement or turn the volume down on anything because, I'm ready for some really great stuff. So thank you so much for coming on board the podcast. And, the resilience movement is really about giving people a platform to listen, to share with other people and to hear other people's stories. And I love your story and I love what you're doing today. And I just want you to tell me and our listeners a little bit about you, how you got to where you are today.
How I got where I am today. So what, I just want to like an intro here, like a bit of a bio or what are you?
Well, yeah, like, you've been on one hell of a journey.
Yeah.
And so I guess if you might want to go back maybe 5 years.
Well, it probably goes back 20 to be honest.
Well,
go really.
We only have an hour.
No, I'm not going to go fight. Not going to. I guess that paints the picture. Really, properly 5 years doesn't really do it justice, but I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up in New Zealand. Lived there 27 years. Moved to Australia in Brisbane here when I was 27. But out of high school, I was like a top athlete, so I ran for New Zealand. Trained my butt off. And then obviously, you get to 20 years old and that not really sure, sort of dabbled in some work and dabbled in some study. Didn't really know what the hell I was doing, to be honest. Still running, but I came home from a tennis practice one night and just cooked my dinner, did my thing, sat down to eat, and I was just really like gaspy and I couldn't swallow. And I remember pacing up and down the house. And at one point, I was being actually laid on my driveway because no one was home. My parents were away on holiday. I was just lying on the driveway going, I think I'm having a heart attack. I think I'm just going to die. So I just laid there for about 10 minutes looking at the sky going, oh, that's it, done. And then I kind of went in, rang an ambulance, and they said, "No, we're not coming." And then that just escalated me more. I understand, I remember my grandparents were home, and they came over, and they were like, "Whoa," because I was just sitting like I am now, and the ambulance didn't come, and my heart rate was 180, 190 beats per minute, like just sitting like this, like just sitting still. So they're like, "Oh, I just had a panic attack," and I was like, "Oh, what is that?" So we're talking 20 years ago. I was naive. I was like, what is a panic attack? What are you talking about? Went to the doctor the next day, and my doctor for most of my life, and being naive that I was, he just sort of gave me some tablets, and I was like, cool, thank you, no worries, you can make sure you get some rest. I stayed at my grandparents that night, took these tablets. I was on that tablet for the next 15 years, and that tablet was an antidepressant, which I had no idea of. And that tablet would go and, I wouldn't say ruin, but that would go and challenge me for the next 15 years of my life. I can say that now. At the time, I didn't realize it. But from that moment, I started developing really bad anxiety. I withdrew from a lot of my sports, so running, tennis, rugby, everything I was playing, I just withdrew. I drank a lot more, even though you do kind of at that age anyway, the party times, but I would definitely do a lot more. And I actually, I developed tics. So I used to have full-on arm swings. And at that time, I actually developed full-on head swings to the point where I'd be like smashing my head. I couldn't focus on a TV at night. I was watching TV, it would just escalate so badly because my body was so drained and tired from having these movements like pretty much all day long. So I go to work, people looking at you, going on the train to work, people looking at you. And that just went on and on and on. That just got worse and worse. So I was looking back, I reckon between 20 and 25, it felt like I was at the doctor's every bloody 3 weeks because I didn't really understand. And then I'd go see
all this stuff's going on.
Yeah. And, you know, to go from playing 3 hours of tennis to now too scared to do anything within a short time frame, it was really, I don't know, it was just scary. And then I remember my mum, she'd get frustrated and angry, and she's like, "Oh, just stop." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she wasn't doing it to be mean. She was just, I can't even imagine as a parent what that must look like. You're seeing your son just turn overnight into this person that, like, I don't even know who I was. And I remember between 20 and 25, like I threw everything. I had quite a good job. I was quite high up in retail, sort of regional manager type stuff, and I was traveling a lot. So I was working 70 odd hours a week, but I did that on purpose because that was my escape. I wouldn't have to kind of deal with anything else. I wouldn't have to go socialize, and if I did go socialize, I just got hammered. I just got hammeredly drunk, so I don't even remember half the shit. They gave me Xanax, so Xanax became kind of between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. every day, pretty much. I'd take one. The weekends, not so much, but definitely during a working week, because it would just calm me down a bit. It would kind of put the tics at bay for a little bit. And by the time I got to 25, I just had enough, and I tried to take my life because I was just done. I was like, this is shit. This is just like, I think I lost my granddad, lost my nana, lost my girlfriend at the time. I was overworked. I was burnt out. I just remember I just didn't go to work one Saturday. I didn't ring in or anything. I never not went to work. Like, when I left that job, I had something like 400 hours of sick leave. So there you go. That tells you how much I never took off. And I'm not saying that as a proud thing now. Probably did then, but I should have used some of that if I knew what I knew now to take some time off for me. But I didn't. I didn't take holidays. I just worked and worked and worked. It became so loyal that the person that lost out was me. And
so when you think back now, like, you were so burnt out, you were on medication, you were drinking heavily, and you were kind of trying to escape everything. Then you had all of this loss in your life, and it all just compounded.
Yeah, I just remember, kind of think back now, but I was just exhausted. I think I wasn't sleeping. I reckon I didn't sleep properly for about 4 months, because my tics would come to bed with me, and sometimes I'd gasp, I'd fall out of my bed. So I had a lot of broken sleep, plus stress of work, plus stress of, the biggest stress was not really understanding what was going on. That was probably the biggest thing. I didn't really know. I didn't know what was going on. So yeah, my mental and physical health just went.
And sometimes we go to the doctor, right, expecting that the doctor's going to have this magic pill, and I don't mean like a tablet, but he's going to have this magic answer that says, this is what's wrong, this is how we fix it. But that's not always the case.
No.
And it's really about going in, isn't it, to understand what's happening with me. What am I feeling?
Yeah, but I think it's not just with doctors. I think we look for that magic pill in anything. As soon as things get hard in our life, we expect something to drop out of the sky, and we're trying to find that one thing that's going to fix us, right? But now, knowing what I know now, it's a really much holistic point of view of, it's a lot of different things that have helped me get to where I am now. But then, yeah, after I got through that, I had to quit my job, move back home. I was home for like 6 months, but the first 3 months, the first 3 months, you would have got 2 words a day out of me. I was like a monk. I just didn't speak,
right,
do anything. Didn't exercise. I just didn't give a shit, to be honest. I didn't care. I was like, fuck, who cares? I guess a lot of self-sabotage. Like, had to leave my job, so I was a failure. Had to move back home, I was a failure. And the thing is, I had no energy or capacity because my body was just so screwed that I just had nothing to give. But I was in the best place possible. I was in a place where, like, my parents were really good about it. They were very supportive, and they just kind of let me go through the motions. There was no pressure to have to go to work or do anything. So, and I think that really helped, not having any pressure at all, because then I could just come out of it in my own accord.
Yeah.
I'm sure if it got to the point of taking the piss, they would have probably said something, but they just let me be. And I remember one day my mum came home and she put this yoga DVD next to my bed, and she said nothing. And I remember waking up and I was like, what's this shit? It's a bit gay. Because this is like early 2000s, right? Yoga was still kind of like, no, it's a girl thing, or, you know, that's like, I just thought that's gay. That's just fucking, what is this shit? And I remember, but then every day I'd kind of read the back of it. It was like, you know, breathing really helps, because I don't really know any of these things. Breathing really helps to like rejuvenate and stuff. So I was like, oh, fuck it. So one day I just chucked it. It was a 45-minute workout, and I did it. And I was like, oh, I actually feel quite good. So I did it every day for the next 3 months. And next minute I was back doing some running. I was playing tennis. I painted my parents' house. I cleaned all the gutters. I just started doing these little things, and then before you knew it, I got a job again, and I was back out, moved out of home, and I was good to go. But if you've heard everything I've said so far, I haven't really dealt with anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Kind of gone through the motion.
Just go back a step for a second. What your mum did, I call planting a seed.
Yeah, hardly. Right? She said nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's just planting a seed.
Yep.
And so, and you make an important point too. Like while you're recovering in a sense of you're starting to work and you've got your independence back and you've moved out of home and you're running and you're exercising, but you're right in saying, but you haven't dealt with anything yet. Tell us more about that.
Well, looking back, I'd been to a couple of psychologists, fucking did my head in. Just were like, hey, feeling today? I was like, fuck, you know how I'm feeling. I was never really given any tools. We never really went into anything. It was all really, it's hard to describe. It was just airy fairy bullshit.
I was about to say that word, airy fairy.
It just made no sense. They never got to my level. They never spoke my language. They never tried to understand me, which means I couldn't understand me. I left every time there thinking I was some crazy person who's just, this is the rest of my life. And one psychologist did tell me, she goes, you're on those pills and you're going to just have this stuff the rest of your life. And I was like, no, that can't be possible. Like, I didn't used to be this way, so you must be able to change it back. No, this is going to be you. You just need to grow into it or some shit. And I was like, grow into it? What are you talking about? And anyway, 2 years later, I look back now, at the time I didn't think it was, but I ran away. I came to Australia to get away, thinking, oh, I'll change your environment, you know, blah, blah, blah. That'll fix everything. And it was good for 3 months, right? Partied it up. I already had a job here. Everything had a place to stay with my mates. Everything was all set up. But 3 months in, boom, all the tics came back, anxiety came back. Everything just haunted me again. And I went and saw another doctor here. And I got sent to a neurologist who did all these tests on my head and freaking stuff. And it was just like, oh, yeah, gave me some more medication, which then that was it. This medication, on top of the antidepressant, was called tetrabenazine, I think. And it was the point where, like, if you touched my arm, I literally could not feel it. I was already numb, but I went to this other thing of numb, like I had nothing. And then I remember having, like, you know, partners and stuff, like girlfriends and stuff, and they just like, I'd get frustrated because I just wasn't even there. I wasn't there physically, mentally, spiritually, anything. Again, I was just reaching for the booze to get through my days. My tics were that bad, like driving on the highway, I'd have people drive past me and mimic me. I'd have people mimic me in front of me, my tics. It just spiraled out of control again. And then, and I look back and I moved over here, and all the support that I did have, I left.
So then you had no support here.
Yeah, well, I had a couple of good mates that I'd grown up with. They were here, but you don't want to come over here and burden people with all your shit, right? So, and then didn't have the same doctor, so there was no relationship there. Got sent to my psychologist, and I remember this one lady just gave me a CD and goes, "Oh, this will help you," and that was the session. Here's a CD with her voice talking to me, and I fucking hated her voice.
And that's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because if I listen to any kind of meditation, if I'm listening to any kind of book, if I don't like the voice, I do not connect.
No. And I was just like, so I got home and I was like, and the thing is, right, I sort of read about all this breathing stuff and that, but I was like, well, can someone show me? I don't really understand it. Like, I'm 27 years old, and obviously I've been reading up a bit, and I think I just, because of my body's under so much stress and stuff, I was just all my breathing was coming from here. And as the day would go on, it would get worse and worse. And then my tics would come out because my body was just in that fight or flight. But I was in that 23 hours a day. Like, it was just exhausting.
Mm.
And I remember, you know, I had a job again, and I got asked to leave that job because of my mental health. They said, this isn't really working for us, so you just need to piss off back to New Zealand. That's what the words were from this boss. And I went and I sat in my car. I was on the Gold Coast, actually, sat in my car and just pulled my eyes out, and I was like, what the fuck have I done? Like, what? Here we go again. So I was back to almost that suicidal state, but I wasn't thinking about it, but I was pretty bad. I didn't work. I didn't have a job for 3 months.
Is that sense of hopelessness?
Yeah, I just felt like I was nothing again. I was like, I'd come over here. I'd got myself a job before I came. I'd saved money. I got a place to live. Like, and looking back, so I'm pretty freaking resilient, right? I'm pretty resilient in terms of, like, I move countries. I do all these things. I'm not scared to go and put myself out there. But then when you're limited by, like, if people are sad, like, people are struggling with their mental health, some people cry, some people get angry. You can hide that behind closed doors, right? I can't hide my tics. I can't hide it when my arms freaking thrown around, my head's thrown around. I'm itching my forehead to the point of blood, my rib cage to the point of blood. So there's blood coming through my shirt every day. Like, you can't hide that shit. So I just felt like there was nowhere I could go.
Yeah.
To escape it. It was just wherever I went, it was like this thing on me that I couldn't detach from. So
what would you say were 3 main catalysts to something changing? So you starting to, like, what got you, like, you're in Brisbane now, what was the main, you know, it doesn't have to be 3, but what were a few of the things that then started to shift again?
Nothing. Well, actually, I started to shift because I got a job in the bank. That's where I started my bank career. Things were going well. I made some good friends. Was living in a good place, and then we got a phone call one night that my mum's got cancer, and then I just kind of started to go yahoo. And again, hadn't dealt with anything, didn't understand my triggers and stuff either. Right, just kind of, if things were going well in life, then I was okay. As soon as something wasn't, and then it all just came out again, right? So you got the phone call. I went home within a week. It was 2010, I think. And I remember came home from a run, and then I got home and everyone was crying. I was like, what's going on? And then my mum just got told it was terminal because it was in her bowel, but it had gone to her liver. So, and my mum was probably one person that was always, you know, she planted the seed, right, of the city, but she was always looking for alternative things, and she'd send me emails or drop me little links to things and try this, try that. So that person, you know, so within a year and a bit later, she was gone. Like, she passed away. So 50 years old, and I went back home for 6 weeks, and again, I just drank a shitload. I just actually said to someone last night, my auntie last night, we're just talking about it, and I just said, I didn't even shed a tear. That's how numbed up I was. That's how numbed up I was from all the medications, from my own crap. And then, like, my mum's uncle dropped off all these casks of wine for the week leading up, you know, when people coming over and stuff. We drank all this wine. It was gone before the funeral. And he rang up the day of the funeral, goes, oh, how's all the wine going? Oh, we're going, oh, it's all gone. He's like, what? We just got smashed. Like, not just me, or everyone, but it was just, my way of dealing with it was just fucking drink. Like, it was fucked. Because I just didn't understand. Like, I lost grandparents, but when you lose someone that close, I didn't understand. And we never really spoke about that stuff. So it was tough. And so I guess when you ask what the catalysts are, that in that 6 weeks that I was back in New Zealand, because I was quite a good runner. And me and my brother would go down the park every day and kick the footy around just to do some exercise. And he goes, oh, let's do some 400 meters thingies or something. And he's never beaten me at anything. And he kicked my ass. He smashed me.
Right.
And I just was like, I went home that day and was like, fuck. looked at myself. I was probably the heaviest I've ever been. It wasn't that heavy, but it was heavy for me. And I just went, you've got to make some changes here. What would mum be saying right now? She'd be saying, sort your shit out, boy. Let's go. So I came back to Australia and I spoke to my boss at the bank and I said, I want to do something to honour my mum that entails me getting fit again. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a marathon on a treadmill. And she goes, oh, let's look it up on the website. Let's have a look online. And fuck that, she says. Let's do you should run for 12 hours on a treadmill. I was like, fuck it, all right. So I committed to it. So I trained from end of 2010, and then on 2011, August 16th, her birthday, I ran 12 hours on a treadmill. We raised $20,000 for cancer.
Yeah.
We live streamed it to New Zealand. I got my work involved, all my friends and family. I had people running next to me every half an hour. And that was a catalyst for me to go, you can get fucking through this and you don't need medications to do it. That was my mindset from all the training I did. And I did my first marathon in that time too. I was running like 200 plus Ks a week just to get ready for the event. So from a guy that had not done much in the past 12 years because of limiting beliefs around how the pills and my mental health and everything affected me. And that was one of the most emotional days. I remember just the last 10 kilometers. It took like an hour and 2 hours. It was so slow, but I was so fatigued. My tics, it was flaring up. I had blood coming down my forehead. There was blood pouring out of my ribs from touching all the time. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I never took a Xanax that day. I'd usually take a Xanax for something like that. I'd never take a Xanax. I just fucking got in there and got the business done. And the next day I woke up, I wasn't even that sore. I went and had a massage at my physio and that was it. But that was a real turning point for me to go, okay, you've just proven to yourself you can break through anything. And because
that's a massive event, right?
Oh, emotionally, physically, mentally, you name it. I remember they were like, oh, because I had there was about 50 people there at the end that I probably knew most of them. And they were like, oh, if someone goes, oh, don't worry about it, you don't need to, you must be exhausted, you don't have to do a talk. And I was like, no, that's the one thing I do need to do. I'm going to thank these people. Like, I wouldn't have gone through this without all the support I had on the day. I had my family in New Zealand sitting there watching. It was emotional. I'd get on there and I just cracked up. Obviously, I just broke down, but I just spoke from the heart and just said, but even doing that, it was like therapy because I was probably, for the first time, I cried over my mum.
Yeah.
And then
Which is part of that process of grief, isn't it? If you haven't processed that grief is still inside you. And I kind of just want to premise this with, and I'm not sure if you feel the same as me, but I am not someone who takes medication either. But I'm not saying that that's how it should be for everybody else. Everybody has to go on their own journey. And if you want to go in a holistic way and not take medication, there's other options that I have personally found myself, and you sound like you've found as well. But that's not to say that taking medication is wrong or a weakness or whatever. It's everybody has to find their own way to get through something. Would you agree?
Yeah, I always sort of say that when I speak about this stuff, it's my own journey and my own choices, and you've got to go have those conversations with the right people in your life. But I will say this, they did fudge me up. Like the medications I was on, looking at them now, they were just giving me more side effects of what I was already experiencing without them. So,
yeah.
And if you've got a doctor who's the first point of call is to write you a script for medications without having conversations or exploring proper stuff, I would go see another doctor to get an opinion to go, because I do think it's good to try the things. But then for some people, they do need to have it. But you've got to have those open conversations and be willing to challenge the doctor and have a healthy discussion. If the end goal is that you need to take it for a short amount of time, whatever it might be, yeah. But I think we're scared as patients sometimes to have those conversations. And I've been 20 years old, had no one in the room. My parents were away. No one to really ask the hard questions. that was
Yeah.
probably shot me in the foot.
Yeah. And I've had the same doctor for 13 years, and he doesn't get the script pad out at all. He knows that's not for me. And it's interesting because back in 2009, and we spoke about this when you interviewed me, I had a trauma, and I felt like there was adrenaline running around my body. It actually felt like poison. And the one thing he told me to do was to go run on a treadmill, which turned the adrenaline off and turned the endorphins on. And, within 3 days of running on a treadmill, not 3 days straight, not 12 hours like you, but running on a treadmill,
Yeah.
that was enough to turn that adrenaline off and have endorphins coming on.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then, when you talk about your journey and, you've gone through that, at what point did you start to, you talk about you hadn't dealt with anything. So at what point did you go, I still haven't dealt with anything, now I need to do that?
Yeah. So that point after the treadmill thing, and then I lost my partner at the time. We were engaged and stuff, and I think it was an emotional engagement because I did it when my mum was alive and just wasn't working. That broke up just after that, and then kind of went downhill a little bit again because, again, as soon as something wrong went in my life, Rhys goes downhill. And it was 2000. Just after that, I seeked to find a doctor who could help me come off my medications, and it took me a year because you'd go to a doctor like, nah, you need to be on these the rest of your life. Nah. One doctor I went to, I walked in the room and he saw my tics and he goes, oh, wait here. And he brings in these 4 students and tries to make me a guinea pig without my permission. I went, what the fudge are you doing, mate? I just stood up and I went, fuck you. And I walked out. I just was like, you piece of shit. Like, I'm not a fucking here to be a guinea pig experiment.
And especially without asking your permission.
Oh, it was just like he got excited, like, oh, wow, somebody with tics. Wow, whoa. Like it was a freaking, oh, let's have a party about it. I'm not like, in my head, I'm going, I just want to get over this shit, man. Like, so probably not for everybody. Then I found the doctor who I have now. And when you speak of doctors like your doctor of, go get on a treadmill, this doctor was about what responsibility are you taking for your life in the past 10 years? Little Asian lady, and I was like, whoa. The first time I met her, I was so defensive, and she's just like, what do you think's causing all this? And she goes, she drew me this little pyramid, and it was a physical, emotional, mental. I was like, oh, it's all mental. And she goes, no, Rhys, it's all emotional. I'm like, oh, fuck off. Yeah. And I'm like, sorry, I was so in denial, right? But that straight away was.
I call it not liking truth bombs, Rhys.
Yeah. Well, but no one had ever done that.
Yeah.
Because everyone in my life had just kind of, whether it's out of fear, had just kind of, I guess, enabled me. No one ever stood up and went, what are you doing, bro? Everyone just goes, oh, have another beer, or laugh at my stupidness or whatever. No one really looked me in the eye and went, what are you doing? And this lady looked at me and went, what you just told me, what are you responsible for? And I'm going, what are you talking about? Blah, 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 mum, this, that, that. And she goes, no, Rhys, you're 100% responsible. And I was like, fuck. And she goes, I will help you as long as you will come here and help yourself. And this is what she did. This is the deal she made with me.
Yeah.
I went to her every 2 weeks for 12 months. She put me on a mental health plan. So I never paid. And still to this day, 7 years later, I've never paid. She said, come in here. If you're willing to do the work outside of our sessions. So I'd see her for an hour every 2 weeks, fucking confronting as pig shit. I reckon I got worse. And by because in the March 2013, I came off I cut Xanax out. I just got off the plane from New Zealand after being to a mate's wedding and went, fuck it. So I stopped Xanax myself, just stopped doing it and haven't taken one since. So that's 7 years. And then the other 2, I worked with her and she goes, right, let's work in the next 6 months and then we'll evaluate where you're at, because you need to deal with your emotional bullshit before you can come off any of this, because you're not going to be in the right frame of mind, because it'll be like being in another worse position. It'd be like something bad happening in your life again. You'll just go backwards. And she's right. And she was right.
Let me ask you this, though. So you've got this doctor now that's confronted you and said, hey, mate, this is your responsibility. But and you were obviously resistant in the beginning and defensive. Why did you continue to go back time and time again, even in the beginning when there's so much resistance?
Because she was the first doctor I'd been to who believed in me.
Right.
I already believed in me, but she was backing that up. And as much as it hurt hearing the truth, I'd walk out of there going, fuck, she was right.
Mm.
I never told her that at the start, but I was just like, fuck, she's right. And I'd be like, and I went home and I did a lot of tapping, a lot of like tapping stuff. I just had hot baths every night. I did healing codes, which is like another form of tapping, which is pretty powerful stuff, which I still do.
So is that part of EFT? Did you learn some EFT tapping?
Yeah, hard out. Like she just hard out that stuff.
Yeah.
The power of the breath. That's the first time I've really done some proper breathing stuff. So she was taking me on the show. I'd get there and she's like, you're breathing out of your mouth again. And I'm like, oh, straight away she sat down. I'm like, right. I straight away knew what she was meaning. So she'd just call me out.
Mm.
And for
so she was the first person that actually, because you said back when we were talking, everyone's talking about this breathing shit, but no one's telling me how to do it. So she was the first person showing you how to do this breathing and how important it was.
Oh, massive. And I was just like, initially I was like, what is this shit? But I became more and more open to it. And by end of November 2014, so with less than a year, I was already off my tetrabenazine. And then I came off my antidepressant, which I've been on for nearly 15 years. And I said, I'm off. And she goes, no, not yet. And I says, fuck it, I'm doing it, Dr. Tan, I'm out. I'm doing it. And she's like, all right, fucking stubborn shit. And the next 6 months after that was hard, really hard. But we worked out my trigger. My trigger was when I was 16, I saw 2 people die of a heart attack in 2 weeks. And that was my trigger for that first panic attack. And because from that first panic attack, and I said, I stopped doing my sports, it's because when my heart rate started getting up, my mind was saying, you're going to die of a heart attack.
Right.
So that was a big cause of it. So when my mind was doing that, like you were talking about, adrenaline would just take over. So the right endorphins weren't ever getting out there. So I'd burn out really quickly. And still to this day, that can affect me, the heart attack thing. But I am more aware of it. Like last year before 75 hard, there was a bit of it for me came up. But I just go to my go-to. I do some journaling. I do my tapping. I just have to tap into it because I'm very aware of it and conscious of it. And but that was actually the main thing that was really the major trigger. Then obviously a lot of shit happened over that 15-year period. Self-sabotage and broken relationships and how I acted and behaved off the back of that. But she just made me go and own every single piece of it.
Yeah. And that conscious awareness changes everything, doesn't it? When you increase your own emotional intelligence and you start to go, what's going on for me right now, and sit in that. And a lot of the time, you talked about the fact that it was easier to drink than to think about what was going on.
Oh, and even after I came off the last medications, I felt I wouldn't drink as much in a setting, but I was drinking probably a couple of beers every night, I think, to replace the medication.
Yeah.
And then I saw a naturopath and I got vitamins, which I still get every single month to this day. So that's, 6-7 years later as well. And that's actually helped a lot because my body was so depleted, magnesium, zinc, B12, which are really, really important for a guy, which I wasn't aware of. And sometimes if I get sick or run down, I get run down more than most. But if I just top it up with zinc, vitamin C, lemon and ginger tea, I can be back up within a day. So it's just really, I've got to understand and be aware of my body and not get caught up in what works for other people, but what works for me. And that's probably been the biggest game changer. And do I still have struggles? Yes, I do. Do I still have my tics flare up sometimes? Yeah, but if I was doing this 6 years ago, I would have been moving around like a freaking heebie-jeebie the whole time.
Yeah.
Like it's very subtle. People never know I have it half the time. Like it's just subtle stuff, but I just know that's my body telling me I need to go deal with something.
Mm. And I think so, you know, when you hear that, you know, when I know something's going on for me and my body's doing this, and, you know, I think I'm 51, so I've seen over the years a lot of, you know, men in particular, she'll be right, mate, you know, and not address those things. And in fact, my father is one of those men who, you know, will be in pain but not go and get checked out, even though he's in his 70s, because he'll go, she'll be right, mate, I don't need to go to the doctors. And it's, you know, really understanding what's going on for you so that you can take the best care of yourself, because that's your responsibility.
Well, the best advice my doctor gave me back a few years ago, she goes, Reece, I don't want to see you when you're sick. I want to see you when you're well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I actually go to her. So I went to her, like my last visit was just before Christmas. I booked in again for February. And yeah, last year I would have seen her 9 times over the year.
Yeah.
And I go there thinking I'm okay, but she sees something in me and she'd be like, what's going on? And it's almost like a therapy session, but she actually works out of her house now 2 days a week, which is literally 1K from my house. I can walk there.
Yeah.
And her husband does like natural stuff. So they have all these things set up. So sometimes I'm sitting there, she's talking to me and she's got like an electro thing rubbing up on here, getting rid of my negative energy. Like this is, she's a GP at another level, and she just genuinely gives a shit. But she only gives a shit if you give a shit. You don't give a shit, she just tell her to piss off.
Yeah,
And
which is what you need, because we have to be accountable for ourselves to have the best life. So what would you say, so when you're going through this journey, and because was it 12 months ago, are you coming up to 12 months ago that you started We Overcome Anything?
yeah, it was in May, so it's been 7 or 8 months.
Yeah. So which is super exciting, you know, like it's a new journey. What made you start that journey?
Lots of fails before that. So I guess, like, you know, when you come through stuff, like I did my life coaching study back in, I've got it here, 2011.
Yeah.
So even before, when I was still going through my own shit. So how can you go be a coach or anything when but that's something you got to learn, right? And I was like, yeah, good. All that stuff was good for back then was to help myself. I was not good to help anyone else. Then I kind of a couple of years later, I dabbled in it again, but I wasn't committed because I didn't know who I was. So I wasn't genuine. I wasn't authentic. I was full of shit, to be honest, if I'm going to be truthful.
Yeah.
And I did that a couple of times, and then I played the victim mentality. Oh, I know people don't support me. No one gives a shit. Well, no, the only person that didn't support me was me. I didn't support myself properly. So I left the bank as a bank manager a few years ago and started working in mental health, did my study for that. I'm still in mental health, work as a peer worker. But in my day job, just before the end of, about 2019, I started getting back into my coaching, and I was like, fuck, I'm actually just good at this. I just love it. I'm in a space now where I could create space for people without taking anything on. I think when you know you can do that, that's where you can make a difference, because it's not about you. And I think prior to that, it was a bit about my own ego and my own pride. And last year, I got my own coach, well, Ryan already knew, and I said, fuck, I need to break through some shit here. So we broke through some shit, and it was already there. Nothing was like forced out. Everything was already there. And every time we have a session, I was like, I need to do this. He goes, go do it. Right, fuck, so I was going to do it. And I just did it. And then I started this group thinking, I don't know what's going to be. But the key to it is that it's the first time I got committed with it. It's not half-assed. I just went in there. I showed up every single day. I did the lives. I did content. I didn't go and just tell people to come and join the group and give them this big bullshit spiel. People in the group started bringing other people in the group. It just grew organically, and
which means it's right.
Yeah, it's
all aligned.
With that comes pressure, but the pressure is only coming from me, no one else.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the part at the moment I'm struggling a bit with, because I've said to you before, like I'm doing my first workshop, and I've just pushed myself out so many comfort zones. I'm not gonna lie, it's pushed me. I just did it yesterday. I put it out to the world yesterday, and I lost sleep. I'm shitting my pants, because it's like, Yeah, but I don't have to do it because it's there.
But that's also very authentic, you know, and I think it's important to be to have nerves and to, you know, be a little bit concerned about whether it's going to go well, because it means you push yourself to go, I want to make it really good.
Yeah.
You know, there's no such thing as perfect, but I want to make this really good.
No, and it's scary and exciting. Like I even feel sick talking about it right now, to be honest. But that's when you know it's right.
Yeah.
You know it's right. And if no one turns up, fuck it, who cares? I'll plan it for another time. Like I've written down the worst case scenarios to go, well, fuck it, because it could happen. Who's Reece Anderson? No one knows who the hell I am. I'm not a Tony Robbins, but at the same time, I'm not out to be anyone else. I'm just out to be me. And if people want to come and see me for me, then that's cool. If they don't, that's cool too. Like, but I just think, well, if you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to know.
Yeah, and you know, we all resonate with the people we're supposed to resonate with. We aren't everybody's what they call cup of tea, right? But
No.
You'll have people that, you know, when they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and you will appear for the people who need what you have to offer. So let me ask you then, how important is planning to be able to stay on track with your life?
Ooh. Do you know what? I used to overplan too much in my life to the point where then it left no room for spontaneous stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I never really understood that until the past few years, and so I like to plan. Like I like to plan and structure. So I say today's a Sunday, so I'll usually sit down, put on my coaching sessions I've got, my work commitments, but then I make sure I schedule time for my daughter, family, friends, because that stuff's important to me. That's probably more important than anything. So making sure I've got a visual of what I'm doing, but if it's all stuff that doesn't fit where I'm meant to be. So planning is good just to make sure everything's aligned, I guess, but also leaving time for spontaneous stuff because that's sometimes when the best stuff happens, right?
The creative juices flow when you're being
I'm not an overplanner. Like, for example, my workshop's in 6 weeks. I like to give myself short time frames because I work better under pressure like that. If I say I'm going to do it in 6 months' time, I'll just piss around, waffle around, procrastinate, where it's like, you know, when I formed the group last year, it was like an idea one day, literally the next day I just created it. So sometimes you just got to, I think sometimes it goes two ways. If you plan too much, you don't take the actions.
Yeah.
But you got to plan enough to keep yourself accountable.
Yeah.
I think that's where I get it good most of the time. Not all the time, but if I give myself the short little stints, that's where I grow and blossom the most and have an impact.
Which again comes back to knowing yourself, knowing how you work and what it is you need to do. And also aligning with your values. You talked about the fact that you plan that fun time and time with your daughter and time with other family, which again aligns with your values. And if you're not doing that, then you've got conflicts and you're nowhere near as productive or as creative or anything like that.
Or present. I think you become less present.
Yeah.
Because you're in your head thinking you should be doing X and X, but you're stuck doing shit that you don't want to do.
Yeah, that's right. So, all right, what does 2021 look like for you in a brief?
Well, do you know what? I put myself out there just before Christmas. I got a reading done, and I've never done that sort of stuff before. And they took me month by month of how my year's going to look. And the scary thing is, everything I'd written down, they didn't ask me any questions. They just told me it was pretty much fact for fact. So 2021 is I've just labeled it as the year of growth. And when I talk about growth, it's like I've already enrolled in my Masters of Coaching. I'm already doing a mindfulness course in February. I've got my workshop booked. I've already got my group coaching again starts today. So for me, 2021 is about taking it to another level of growth for me, but it's really for other people because I just need to keep growing me so I can keep delivering and uplifting the people around me because I think that's important. If you're not growing, then how can you go out and make an impact, right?
Yeah.
So for me, 2021 is, and this reading was scary because there was a couple of things that you didn't want to hear, which was, there's going to be some tough times with someone close to you and that sort of stuff. But at the same time, you can't read into that too much either, because like we just lost someone just yesterday actually. So in the family, but that wasn't mentioned in the thing. So you know what I mean? You can't just take it as gospel either. But most of the stuff that was said was everything that I wrote down for 2021. So 2021 is just about growth. It's about raising the bar and making myself as uncomfortable as possible, because otherwise it's just going to be a stag. Like I did last year, it's carrying that same momentum in, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think, when people understand that there are always going to be challenges in life, but when we grow, we become more resilient because we learn from past challenges, and we learn from, what could we have done better, or how could we have handled that better, or could I have reached out to people sooner, or, so I think that if you have that mindset of, I'm not going to deal with anything difficult, nothing bad is going to happen, or, you're kind of setting yourself up for a bit of disappointment, because life is challenging. There's always going to be something that's going to challenge your thinking or challenge how you live life, or, and especially when you have family, and if you've got close family ties and something happens, then, you're going to have grief and sadness and all those things. Exactly. We can't prepare for any of that, but we can, reach out to people when we need to. So is there anything else, just before I ask you, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
I just think on what you were saying, Donna, is that it's like last year, like everyone's like, oh, COVID ruined the year. How many people put a post up going, oh, good riddance 2020? But here's my thing. How many years before that have you put that same post up because of something else?
Yeah.
We let one shit thing define our whole year. Well, the year's full of 365 days, right? And how many bloody hours, I don't know. But end of the day, yeah, COVID was shit, and I get it. It was shit for people. It was shit. It'll hit us in some sort of way.
Yeah.
But if that's how you're going to define your year, well, what's going to be this year? As soon as one thing goes wrong, that defines your whole year. And I think that's where people get caught up. That's where I think people have a negative mindset, because as soon as something goes wrong, they just fall into that trap of, oh, that's it, the year's a write-off, bring on next year.
Yeah. I mean, you absolutely, I totally agree with what you're saying. And, I lost all my face-to-face training last year, all of it, right? But that didn't make it a bad year. It just means I had to adjust and I had to do different things. But I also had to accept that there's things I cannot change. So when we focus on what we can influence and let go of what we can't, we change the trajectory of where we want to go. So I think that, when people go, I hope 2021 is going to be a better year, we'll make it a better year.
Yeah. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I look back and go, 2020 was an awesome year, but I created that. And that's not to be arrogant, but I created it because I went out there and I committed every day to whatever I was doing. And no matter what, I did it, whether it was a hard day or a good day or a shit day, you made it happen. And I guess that proved to me what we're truly capable of as human beings, if you have the right mindset.
Yeah. And you kind of touched on something that's really important for the listeners to understand too, is you, like me, like a lot of other people who are in this kind of way of thinking, we don't pretend every day is easy. We don't pretend that, days are all, we're all smelling roses or whatever. There's hard days. Would you agree?
Well, I did like yesterday. We lost someone in our family,
yeah.
But I'm still here smiling because it's out of my control. It is what it is. You go through the process. I've got to go to the hospital in 2 days and have this crappy procedure done. I'm shitting my pants for it. But end of the day, there's always going to be those things. But my mindset just goes, well, you're still here now, so let's just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you've got those values and you've got those things that you're trying to create, they're the carrots you dangle and you follow, and you just got to stay true to those no matter what's going on.
Yeah, that's right. So, all right, are you ready for this? So I can let you go for the day. You can keep planning. 4 questions, just rapid fire answers.
Go for it.
All right. What are you currently reading and why?
Currently reading, what's it called? How to Be a Monk by Jay Shetty.
Yep.
I've just started that. I got it given to me for Christmas actually, and I'm reading that because I'm fascinated. I've done about 50 pages. I'm so fascinated by it. Like it was the book I was given, and I was like, I had other books to read. I was like, I started on my holiday, and just because I love hearing other people's stories and what they've got out of their life, because you can learn so much from other people.
Fantastic. All right. What does vulnerability look like for you?
It's showing up when you don't want to.
Okay. What should young men know today that you didn't know when you were a young man?
It's okay to speak up, open up, and cry.
Okay. And what was your proudest moment of 2020?
Oh, geez, that's a hard one. There's so many. Probably doing my 13-hour mental health marathon where I interviewed 27 people in 13 hours straight around mental health stories and challenges. That was pretty much that was a banger of a day.
Fantastic. Rhys Anderson, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Anything else you'd like to tell our listeners that they should absolutely know from you?
Obviously, if you want to follow my group, we have Become Anything. It's on Facebook. We do lives and stuff, or we can just happy to add me as a friend on Facebook, Instagram, just RP Anderson. Otherwise, yeah, always happy to have chats or conversations about anything that's touched today.
Fantastic. And we will put a link to We Overcome Anything in the podcast so that you can jump over and join the group as well. So we always want to connect people in whatever circle we can. So thanks everyone for listening. Cheers for now.